Dr. Rachel Docekal and Dr. John Dyben. Welcome to the M to the Rock Show.
Thanks
for having us.
Great to be here.
Well, I'm glad to be here. From Dallas all the way to West Palm Beach, Florida, and got to tour the facility, the Hanley Clinic, which is brought to you by the Hanley Foundation. And God, I'm speechless. What a wonderful experience it was. Real quick, Dr. Rachel, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about the Hanley Foundation and the Hanley Center.
Sure. This is really a fun story. I could talk about this for the next hour. Mary Jane and Jack Hanley, 40 years ago, started two organizations, Hanley Foundation and Hanley Center. And Hanley Center was the treatment arm, was really in there helping people get well. Hanley Foundation was tasked with prevention, programs, really getting out into the community, outreach, helping keep kids from starting drugs, starting alcohol. And, the two of them worked side by side for many, many, many years. In 2023, Hanley Foundation acquired Hanley Center. And so they are now part of our continuum. And it has just been an amazing, amazing journey. And the work that we do every single day is focused on eliminating addiction. It's really that simple, eliminating addiction.
It's beautiful. And John, it's kind of, we were talking earlier at lunch today, everything starts with a seed.
That's exactly right.
Did the Hanley family have a family member that was struggling with addiction that goes, we want to make a difference in the community?
You bet. And it's a beautiful story. So, these two, college kids, literally Jack and Mary Jane, that was their name. They
song.
meet.
Yeah, Jack and Mary Jane. Sounds like a movie.
Yeah, it could be. Well, maybe it will be one of these days. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But Jack and Mary Jane, they met in college. They're really bright people, fell in love, got married. Jack became the CEO of an enormous corporation called Monsanto. It's still one of the largest corporations in the world. Mm-hmm. And Mary Jane found herself very, very bright, kind of shy, but super smart. She found herself now the wife of this CEO, and in that kind of culture and idea, she would be responsible for entertaining people and things like that. She found out at some point that if she had a couple of drinks, she felt better and it was easier for her to entertain. What she didn't know was she had the predisposition to develop the disease of addiction, and she developed full-blown alcoholism that just about tore their family apart. And these are good people, just beautiful people, and they've got everything, but this disease was tearing them apart. Lots of long stories, but bottom line, Mary Jane got treatment. She found recovery. She had that spiritual awakening, and recovery transformed the family into more than it would ever have been, without it. And Jack and Mary Jane had a house down here in Florida, and Mary Jane they were talking about, what do we want to do? We've been given so much. And what do we want to do with what we've been given? And Mary Jane said, I'd love for there to be a place here in Florida where people could come and where they could know that they are not bad people trying to get good. Right. They're people with an illness trying to get well. And where Mary Jane's vision, and I love to tell people this, and I'm glad to say this since you've just been on the campus and seen it.
Yes.
Mary Jane's vision was a campus where everything that you encounter, from the way from the cleanliness of the place, to the way the paint is, to the way the flowers are, to the way the people talk to you, that everything should speak to the dignity of every human being that walks on that campus. And so they, at the time, 40 years ago, partnered with Hazelden, and Hazelden brought in a model, and it started out as a partnership between Hanley and Hazelden and the local hospital, St. Mary's Hospital. And it was this three-way partnership. But the thing, even though over the years that has, the players have changed, what has never changed is Mary Jane's vision that when you walk on that campus and think about people who come to residential addiction treatment, everything in their life is saying, you're a failure, you're worthless, is not speaking to their dignity. And you come to a campus where everything says to you, you are worthy, you are worth it.
And so you're loved.
And you're loved. And,
you're loved.
Mary Jane, she actually passed pretty recently.
Yeah, this past fall.
This past fall.
But that vision that was literally, and it's funny, Betty Ford, she developed a relationship with Betty Ford.
With very similar stories.
With very similar.
Yeah.
And Betty Ford actually came down and was part of the groundbreaking ceremony. And Betty Ford and Mary Jane Hanley literally planted some of the plants that still exist there, like bushes that still exist there today, because it was, again, the environment, everything should say, not just how people treat you, but that's really important. Everything should say, you are worth it.
Yes, absolutely perfect. I mean, Rachel, why are you involved in this? Well, I mean, I've sent some, we've actually had our first day of some one-on-one today. Mm-hmm. And why are you so passionate about this? I mean, riding in the car with you and listening to you on the phone and you and I talking and discussing, and this is the way it is. It's the way, it's passion. And I love that. Why are you so passionate about this?
Every part of my family is touched by addiction. Every part. I can remember being a little girl, and my grandmother would carry around what I thought as a 6-year-old was the most beautiful blue cobalt glass. Mm-hmm. And I found out later that this glass was always filled with gin and ice, but it was always filled with gin. My grandmother did not live past my 7th birthday, and my dad was taken too soon. Again, he certainly was a respected professional, but a functioning alcoholic, I believe. Every part of my family, and when I was younger, I had an eating disorder. And to this day, I don't drink. And, I know that my husband and I need to really watch our kids, because this moves through families, just like it's moved through mine.
And that brings us up to a very good point. And we spoke about this at lunch on Monday, the other day, about how this disease, it's a family disease.
It is.
And we talk about this so much that we talk about that it's a family disease that's become very cliche.
Yeah.
But it truly is a family disease. And what concerns me for the patients, as the patients are getting well, the ones who are really leaning in and trying to get well, let's say that they're, at the Hanley Center for, 60 days, 90 days. Mm-hmm. They've got 90 days of intense recovery in them, but the family is sitting at home and they're not leaning in, and they've got 90 days of intense resentments leaning in. How are we addressing the families from day one?
I have to just give John some credit here. Hanley Foundation or Hanley, we'll just say Hanley, has had so many innovations in its 40 years. We have pioneered so many of, the practices that have been, proven by research to really, really work in treating addiction. Talk about the innovation that you and your team introduced, if you would, around 2010 with the family program. This is amazing.
So, and I wish I could say there's
2010. Did you have a driver's license then?
I'll tell you what.
So
he dyes his hair gray now.
Everyone individually dyed gray, but the first of all, I think it's really important just to say what we mean by family disease, because a lot of times people hear family disease and the family members hear, it's my fault that my loved one has developed addiction.
Right.
And no matter what, even if we understand it's a disease, you talk about families sitting in resentment, man, they've been hurt, they've been lied to, and so one of the things that we say is that when we say family disease, we mean that we're not talking about who's at fault. We mean that everyone deserves recovery. And so dad who's putting your kid in treatment and you're just pulling your hair out. We're going to treat your kid like a human being and with dignity because he deserves treatment. But guess what, Dad? You're hurting too. You're wounded. Your son deserves to have healing, and so do you. Yeah. And one of the things that and I will get to what you're saying. One of the most brilliant things I ever heard, and it shocked me when I first heard it. And it's actually our clinical director of family services, a guy named Stephen Honecker, who's just brilliant.
He's terrific, yeah.
And I was listening with him in a group once, and he said, I want to suggest to you something different. And he's talking to family members, and he says, family members, you've heard that you've been affected by the disease of addiction, but I'm here to tell you you've been infected.
Right.
And it is,
it's exactly true.
Just so
exactly
strong.
Right.
But several years ago, probably about 15 years ago or so, and we had a team, and I have to say, there was a guy named Mark Constantino, who was a therapist in this community, well known. He's passed a few years ago, but he kind of spearheaded it and got us all together. And we had, like a lot of places, they'll have a little 3-day program, a weekend program for families, and we kind of bunch of people locked themselves in a room and said, what are we missing? What do families need? And so we walked out with this 5-day family program where we were talking about day 1 and 2, there's a lot of education and a lot of sharing and processing. And so if you're a family member, you come, but, and you're there with other family members, and there's also patients there, but your family member, your patient, isn't there. And so the patients and the family members are not related to each other. And those first 2 days, what they tell us again and again and again and again and again, is it is the most powerful thing they'd ever experienced, because family members could hear from the perspective of patients without the baggage of, hey, you just robbed me last week. Mm-hmm. And patients
it's just absolutely genius.
It's so powerful. And then on Wednesday and Thursday, we then bring you're in with your family. So patients and families are in together. And that's all about
it helps the walls come down a little bit.
Yes.
The walls come down where, it's once I see him, I'm just by seeing him or her, I get triggered.
You got it.
That's exactly right.
So it removes the triggers.
They walk in, family members walk in Monday, and so do patients. They are thinking. There's this. They're like, I am when I see my family member, or whether you're the patient or the family member. I've got all these agenda things. And my guard is up. You got it. My guard's up, but by Wednesday morning, when they've gone through this Monday and Tuesday, they still can't wait to see their family member, but they can't wait because they can't wait to say, oh my God, I understand something I've never understood. And they walk in on Wednesday beginning to connect. And it's important because we ask them to do hard work.
Yeah.
And we ask them to tell the truth to each other. And we ask them to learn and to expand and grow.
It's the same message, but it's being delivered through a different person.
Sure. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. It's so powerful.
Did you come up with that, or?
So this was that team. And I was the clinical director at the time. And so I, got to be part of that team, but led by this guy, Mark Constantino, and a team of therapists. We locked ourselves in for a week I think your office was up there. My
office was upstairs.
Bunch of loud, rowdy, but it was, and the people who, most of the therapists who developed this, one of those therapists is running a program of his own, and they're,
really talented people.
Yeah. And that's what it takes. It takes all of us. That's why I would hope that somebody who has a treatment program is listening to this, goes, that's a great idea. I'm going to steal it. Please do it.
Please steal it.
Steal it.
I think at Hanley, we could start even a webinar process. You can do it in a webinar form, on a Zoom where you have both of that. And Rachel, how successful has this been? mean, has this been a game changer?
It's a game changer.
Yeah.
There is today not a family program, anything like this, as much as we want people to steal this, because it's hard work and it takes commitment. You know, families coming and spending 5 days learning and understanding and listening and watching those walls come down. But boy, is it hard work. It's really hard work. The one thing I will say is, you know, Hanley wants to get to a place where we're offering a family program for other treatment centers that don't have them. Because what we know is that this component with the family is so critical for people to have a healthy recovery. They may have recovery, but it's not going to be as healthy as it could be if they didn't go through this type of family healing.
Well, and as a person in long-term recovery and so passionate about it, into the rock, educating and helping the families. And the reason why we're so passionate about educating and helping the families, because they're the ones who are reaching out to us.
Yeah,
you know, the addicts who are in active addiction aren't calling him too, you know, but it's the families that are reaching out. So to get the families involved in a program immediately to get them, because here's the great thing is that two people in recovery, we get here. You know, you have one person in recovery here and the other one not. Those triggers happen. And that's why we have the relapses that we have, that when we come home and like, you were doing so great at Hanley, you know, and then you get home and 120 days later, what happened? And it can be just a simple trigger of a family member doing that. And I don't have the tools on like what they mean by, you know, something like that. It can be as little as that. So let me ask you this. I hear things and I'm reminded of, you know, when people are searching in business, you know, they're looking for the proper treatment center, you know, to take. Is treatment center the right wordsmithing? You know, treatment. What do you like to go by?
It's the common, you know, we talk about behavioral
it's a dirty
healthcare.
industry.
There's so much, you're right. And that is, you know, there's when you say treatment center, there's so many, the possibilities of what that could mean is so wide. But we talk about, you know, we are healthcare providers. At the end of the day, what we provide is healthcare.
That feels better.
That means though that we have to hold ourselves up to standards of healthcare. So that's why we invest in measurement-based care. That's why we invest in outcomes. That's why so if you're going to do healthcare, you have licensed people and you have at the same time that I think of us when I talk about if you ask me who I work for, I'm going to say I work for a healthcare organization because that's what we do. At the same time, everything that we do, all of our existence, the sole purpose is to facilitate spiritual awakening. And so every doctor, every nurse, every psychologist, every therapist, every RA, every chaplain, and all we mean by that is this, that addiction disconnects us from life. And life, you know, when the word spirituality comes from the Latin word spiritus, right? Spiritus, which is breath or life. Healthy spirituality is about being connected to life, and addiction, by its very nature, it disconnects us from life. And so, our function is healthcare, but our purpose is facilitating spiritual awakening
and helping bridge that gap and getting someone to have that spiritual awakening, just like Miss Hanley did.
That's exactly
just like Mrs. Ford did.
Yep,
that's just like M2 the Rock did.
Yep,
and Rachel, just like you did. You know, have that spiritual awakening to get rid of that resentment of, you know, our families who have hurt us, because you are on the family side. You know,
Absolutely.
And both of y'all are on the family side, and I'm on the addict side. You know, and working together, you know, and people, I love it when someone says, you know, oh, yeah, okay, I'll ask you this, Rachel. Is addiction a disease or a choice?
I mean, I'm going to come down every single day as a disease.
Okay.
Every single day.
Okay.
You know, the challenge though, and let me go back to my eating disorder, for example. That was a process addiction. And, there were a lot of factors that went into that. It was all the same.
And for the viewers and listeners, I'm sorry, process addiction is gaming, your cell phones, you could be shopping, something like that, right?
Yep. Those are all process addictions.
Yeah, continue. Go
That's
ahead.
right. So for me, it was lack of coping skills as a young person, and the expectations, the trauma, all of those different things that I experienced as a young person. So any of these addictions really, are a disease. There is not, it's difficult to explain the changes that happen in your brain, because when those changes happen in your brain, you don't realize that they've happened in your brain. That's
right.
Exactly right.
Dr. John?
No question. So it's an addiction. And the best way, we live under this, I think most of us live under this idea that we are always in control of ourselves. Yes. And so I was a college professor for a few years, and I would teach this neurobiology of addiction to undergrads. And they, of course, definitely like, I'm in control, and I don't do anything I don't want to do. And so what I would do is at some point in the lecture, and we're talking about the brain, and we're talking about what's actually happening, the changes that we know happen in the brain when somebody is under addiction. At some point, I would randomly just slam my hand down, or do something like just and what would happen? Everybody would go like this, right? Right. And so my question then to the class is, so tell me about the logical thought process that went into that. Were you just sitting there and did you think, Dr. Dyben just made a loud, strange noise, and he's kind of strange anyway, so I think I might be in danger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to force the blood to my extremities, and I'm going to immediately protect none of that. You're not. So the human brain actually has parts that are volitional, and part I'm doing this, like I'm in the prefrontal cortex, right? Yes. But there are also parts of human behavior that are not volitional. The best example, I tell people about my father. So my father was a fighter pilot. He's a scientist. He's a very devoutly like in love with Jesus kind of religious guy. I mean, he's the most honest person I've ever known in my life. So besides
Rachel?
I'm telling you, he will, if he's going to sell you a car, he's going to show you every bit of dent that's ever been there to make sure that, so he's a combat fighter pilot. He was Top Gun, he got smarts, he's got toughness, he's got religion and morals, and then he told me a story once of a time where he had to go through a jungle survival training before he went off to combat. And one of the things they did is they deprived them of water for like 67, some number of hours, that they bring them to where you're dying of thirst. Right. And he said, here's what I learned about myself. In that moment where I was literally dying of thirst, I would have done anything to anyone to get water. I would have lied to you, cheated you, stole from you. Why is that? Is it because he's morally weak? Is it because, no, it's because he's not tough. Is it because he's dumb? None of those things. It's because what happens now, we understand when we're in a life or death situation like starvation or dying of thirst, the blood flow that we need actually moves into our instinct areas, moves out of our frontal areas where our judgment is. I like to call it our moral centers, because that really annoys neuropsychologists, because they're like, there is no moral center. But that's, that part, the part that is the stop, right? The think about it. And we go into, and so any one of us, if we were in a situation where we were dying of starvation, we would do anything. And what happens in addiction, and specifically we know this with chemical dependency, we see it, and we know it's harder to understand. The more the research is happening, the more it's looking like the process is very, very similar with some of these process addictions. But we know with chemical dependency that it puts the brain, when somebody crosses that barrier, because it is possible for somebody to just be an idiot and drink too much or used to.
Just a one-off.
Right.
Yeah.
But they can walk away. When they get consequences, they tend to walk away. When a person develops that addiction, their brain is literally changed and is putting them into a survival state. And so it is not, at that point, it's not volitional. They must use and so when you hear people say stories like, man, I got out of treatment. I didn't put in place, because if you put in place the things that you need in order to combat this, you actually can overcome this. But if you're not working a program, if you're not engaged in your work, people will say, man, I got out of treatment and I didn't do anything, but I didn't feel like drinking. And then one day after 2 or 3 months, I was driving home and all of a sudden I found myself at the liquor store and I was buying a bottle, and everybody says,
that's a whole other topic too, because that's relapse behavior that started way before and not recognizing it.
And that's the whole key.
Right.
If you're not putting those things in place, then the automatic, the instinct part of your brain will take over.
Yeah.
And so those people, I tell people, when people say, I just found myself there, they're not lying.
Yep.
But it started long before.
Right.
Yeah.
Rachel, addiction, the word addiction. One of the things I love to emphasize on Into the Rock is we need to stop focusing on addiction and start focusing on why the addiction.
Sure.
Right. And addiction is when I'm drinking and doing drugs, I am trying to find something to relieve the pain and suffering from unresolved trauma. What do you do at Hanley to address trauma?
So I will say that as much as I want to answer this question, I'm going to let our chief clinical officer answer it.
But you have a better radio voice.
He will do a much better job than I will.
Okay, John.
I just won't shut up.
Yes.
No, it's all good.
Yeah,
But trauma, you and I have talked about this offline. What are we doing at Hanley to separate ourselves to address the real root of the problem? Because a lot of places are watering the leaves on the tree, okay? The tree is dying. We've got to start watering the roots, and it's unresolved trauma. Walk me through this.
So the correlation between people who come into an addiction treatment center and who have experienced trauma that is causing problems in their lives is extremely high. Research, you're absolutely right.
And let me just pop in. What's trauma to one person is not
it's
trauma
relative.
to another person and vice versa.
That's right. I mean, it could be like your dad didn't show up for your soccer game.
Right.
Or in the ninth grade, you had a high school crush on a boy and he broke up with you.
Or we have these first responders who have seen dead body after broken family.
All the time.
It's
so good.
So different. So different. Sorry, John.
And what was interesting is the research says that when you ask first responders, by the way, about 70% will say they have experienced a traumatic event. About 70%. 100% of them have. So first responders are less likely to self-report. So
the other 30%, it just hadn't hit them yet.
Of course, it's this. So what we know, we assume we have what's called a trauma-informed organization. And what that means is we assume, and think about trauma as this. So I think about psychological wounds and physical wounds, right? So when I define trauma, I have the same definition for a physical trauma as an emotional trauma. It is a wound that has a significant impact and a lasting effect.
Yes.
And so that can be different for different people, and not everything's a trauma, but our patients, what we find in this, it's at least 90%, probably 100, and have experienced significant emotional wounds. And so first of all, everybody in the organization, everyone from Dr. D, who doesn't see patients, right? The CEO doesn't see, to the person who, in housekeeping, to the people. I mean,
Everybody
is trained on trauma-informed care.
Say that again, because I want these viewers and listeners to hear this at the Hanley Center. Everyone is.
Everyone. And that's a key element of trauma-informed care, because listen, the person who is, taking care of the grounds, or anybody who's encountering or potentially could encounter a patient is part of the environment. So one of the first things that we know is that when people have experienced trauma, one of the most normal things that happens is when they go into any institutionalized setting, it's re-traumatizing for them. Yeah. So the first thing is know enough about it so that you don't re-traumatize. The next thing is SAMHSA, the Substance Use and Mental Health Services Administration, has given us these pillars, given us some guidance on what makes a trauma-informed care organization. In fact, there's 6 specific things. And so we train our staff on that. We then also have specific clinical and medical team members who are trained in some modality for addressing trauma. It is assessed for every patient every time and is part of the treatment plan. But one of the most unique things that Hanley has that we hope, we're actually doing a study on this, we're doing a validation study. Do you know that there is, in all of the psychometric tests out there is nothing that asks a patient, hey patient, do you feel like this organization is actually trauma informed? And so there are 6 pillars that SAMHSA defined. And what we've done is we've taken those and we've put that into an assessment that we ask our patients. We call it the TICKR, the Trauma Informed Care Review. And we're asking patients, and this doesn't exist anywhere in the country, shockingly. Yeah. We've got things where people can come in and you can hire a consultant and they can look at your organization and tell you if it's trauma informed, but there's not one thing out there that says that we're actually going to ask the patient, hey patient, trauma-informed care organizations, for example, are transparent and honest with you. Do you feel like this organization's transparent and honest with you? Trauma-informed care organizations, they really encourage peer support. Have you got peer support here? So what we do is we created this assessment that actually asks the question, and we're currently doing a scientific study to validate that, because we believe that it will actually measure the fidelity to trauma-informed care. And we believe that if people treat patients with trauma, if patients feel, if they experience, not like I checked off a box. No, Michael, I know you're saying you didn't, but I checked off the box, right? But is the patient saying, I feel like there was fidelity to trauma-informed care? We believe that we're going to see decrease in the trauma activity scores, so the trauma symptoms. And so we're actually doing an IRB approved study right now on this. The whole point is saying that, other than I'm so excited about that, and I think it's really cool, and then we're going to give it away.
John is also our chief research officer, so
because y'all provide a lot of curriculum. Because I've just learned so much about you. You're, so highly received in Dallas. I mean, and I've been sharing that with y'all. I mean, everybody's been like, texting saying, man, I can't believe it. Hanley's awesome.
Thank you.
But y'all have so many, resources that y'all provide, curriculum. And am I right about this?
You are right.
I mean, I'm learning the curriculum that y'all provide. And you champion all this?
I'm one of the champions. Yeah. We have a lot of champions.
We have a lot of champions.
Yeah.
But our CEO says, you find something that's cool, give it away.
Right.
And that's what I love.
And that doesn't just come from me. That comes from our board. If we could just increase the number of people in this country who are getting quality treatment, we would all be so much better off. So, if we have something that works, we're going to give it away.
Right.
We can't treat everybody ourselves.
Because that's what Miss Hanley would want it to
Yes.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly
'Cause
right.
I've been sitting here kind of thinking, if she, looking down, I mean, would you think about it? Would she be proud?
Yeah.
What would Miss
Every
Hanley
day.
do?
That's right.
And
That's right.
your role, Rachel, in all this, being the CEO of the foundation and the Hanley Center, you've got some big things happening right now. I mean, y'all have over 14-acre campus. Is that correct?
We do. Botanical gardens.
Yeah. What's going
they're
on?
Amazing.
I mean, I'm seeing some stuff moving around. We got some bobcats going on, the tractors moving around. That's what whole construction day is.
That's right. Construction guys.
But
not real bobcats.
not real bobcats, but got some tractors going around. So
we just
what's in the
broke
future?
ground 2 days ago. I know you spent some time with us on campus, so you experienced those bobcats.
Yeah.
We are adding a recovery bookstore and cafe, really making this one piece of our campus, which is public facing and open to the community, a gathering place for recovery. We want people to have a place that they can go, maybe be part of a meeting, maybe meet their sponsor, maybe just go to a safe place where they can have a cup of coffee and just meditate for a little bit.
Right.
It's so important. So
And it's okay to be alone, not to isolate.
Well, that's right.
Yeah, that's what's so beautiful about being at Hanley, because we get to learn how to be alone, which is okay, instead of isolate.
Yeah.
Because I'm real good at
Big
isolating.
difference.
That's when I beat
You and me both.
beat myself up. But y'all are really making some big moves. I want to share something. When we were touring the other day with Lisa and myself and walking around, you did something that was pretty powerful, and it really touched Lisa. And you said, "Hey, y'all keep going. I want to take Lisa and show her something." And that is the maternity ward. And it's something that is unheard of. What'd you call it? Treatment center.
We call it our perinatal program.
Okay. Please be detailed and define this. This is so powerful.
Sure. So, I just want to start with I'm a mom. So I have a 20-year-old. I can't believe she's 20, and a 22-year-old at this point. And there is nothing that I hold more dear than being a mom. That program that we opened, it's called Casa Flores, is one of my biggest passion projects. And what we know is that women who are addicts, who, find themselves addicted to drugs or alcohol and then find themselves pregnant, a lot of
Very
times.
common.
And they experience much, much more stigma than, other individuals who
And trauma.
and trauma
Yeah.
and trauma. And so, what Hanley has set out to do is create a program that, is, as John talked about earlier, a program that's going to treat these women with dignity, not treat them as if they should be ashamed of themselves. They have a disease. They also happen to be pregnant. And so they come to Hanley really at any stage in their pregnancy. One of the things we haven't talked about is the capabilities that we have in our medical department.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that.
Really amazing.
That's what I'm saying. This could be a 9-hour show. I mean, because there's so many great things to talk about,
Thank you.
But yes,
Thank
the medical team, I met and spent time with them today. Incredible.
Yeah, they're just terrific. We also sit right next to St. Mary's Medical Center, which is the best neonatal hospital, in Palm Beach County. So these moms then go next door to St. Mary's. They can have their babies. Many, many times the babies have to spend a little bit of time in the ICU. And then they come back to campus with mom. And, the experience is just amazing. We have doulas that are part of the program. They help mom with things like nursing. We really make sure to look for, any, gosh, that time post delivery, whether it is not sleeping or, all of the different complications that can happen, we are there and, we're not only working with the mom as a mom, we're also helping her continue to find her way in recovery. And then we have step down and there are various parts of the program, but it is just a terrific program.
I'm so glad that I came out here. And as we land the show, we're going to have many more. I mean, there's just topic after topic that, that we can talk about. But how can people contact the Hanley Center, the Hanley Foundation, the Hanley Group? Okay. How can they contact and what can they do to help? What can they do for the foundation and the nonprofit? Is there a program for indigent? It's like, M2, this is great, man. This place is, really creme de la creme, but I don't have insurance. I can't afford it. I mean, is there opportunities out there where people can donate to help, patients, experience this first class center?
Sure. So first of all, anybody who wants to contact us can go to...
Yeah, we'll have it all in the description below. I'm sorry, I meant to say that.
That's okay. To hanleyfoundation.org or hanleycenter.org. We are a nonprofit, so we proudly have that .org at the end of our name online. Our number is 561-841-1000. So it's pretty easy, 561-841-1000. And I will say that if you go to the Hanley Foundation site, you will see a donate now button on most every page. Right. We raise as much money as we can every single year for treatment scholarships. And, we always have people in treatment who are there on full scholarship. Certainly this is a situation where, there are some, the admissions department wants to make sure that the needy folks are getting the dollars. I'm not saying that quite right, but
you said it actually perfectly.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that there is an opportunity or an option for indigent clients, because a lot of us don't go getting clean and sober because our IRAs are doing great. Right. We're managing our cash correctly. Yeah. Sure. Our hair's on fire. But exactly I wanted to put that out there because y'all offer that as well as everything.
One of the things that you just said is bringing up a topic that we talk about a lot. There's this statistic that most employers don't know. About 50% of workers' comp claims are in some way involving drugs and alcohol. 50%. Wow. And workers' comp, especially for larger organizations, is really expensive.
Yeah, it is. I remember that. In a home building company. Yeah.
It's one of the biggest costs that an organization has. If we could encourage organizations, companies to lean into having an EAP or a human resources
and what's
department,
an EAP?
Employee assistance program that helps identify people who need help before it becomes catastrophic, before that staff member is drinking in the parking lot at lunch. Figure out when somebody needs help. That's something else that Hanley does. We talk to employers. We help how to identify somebody who is struggling with addiction and how to have those conversations and how to get them help. Typically what we find, and somebody who is now in a successful program of recovery, that is a staff person you want forever.
That's right.
Somebody who's working a program is just, an ideal staffer.
That's right. And for all this listening, here on Into the Rock, that I love this and in your bio here, the letter that you wrote in this gorgeous magazine, The Recovery Revolution. I was reading this last night, and powerful letter that you wrote. And, it's a year of change of just beginning. As we look to the future, we are filled with optimism and determination. We are exploring new ways to expand our services, reach more people, and create lasting impact. The stories and insights shared in this edition of Recovery Revolution offer a glimpse into the exciting developments on the horizon and the continued evolution of our work. I love that.
Thank you.
We just keep paying it forward.
Yeah.
Just keep paying it forward. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being on. And
Thanks for having us.
I'm so excited to be here and look forward to many more shows.
Yeah.
And once again, in the description, make sure you click the like button, subscribe to our channel, and also go to the Hanley Foundation description. In the description, just click on their links and all that. Go like their pages, follow them, share this out, and subscribe to our channel to watch more great information about addiction recovery. From all of us here at Into the Rock, I got 3 words. It's got 8 letters, and it's got one meaning, and that is, I love you. Go make it a great day.